As promised, today is part two of our series, and I forgot my watch. For some reason, I forgot my watch, and that watch is not correct right there. Um, I was telling Adi I probably going to preach a little longer today. Um, I missed breakfast. Some of you did too. But if you feel hungry in the middle of the sermon, I will not be offended if you go exit and get some crackers over there and come back. All right? But today is part two. That means there's another one, part three, which will happen after I got back from Andrews. I have a trip to Andrews. Ashley wants us to attend to her graduation. Is that okay to support Ashley's graduation? We're going to go to Andrews for her graduation. So, before we left for our trip about a few weeks ago to Asia Minor and Macedonia, now known as Turkey and Greece, I said that we will pick up where we left off in this series. So before moving forward, let's do a little study, a little trip with me, and bring you to this trip. I have some pictures to share, and some of you have been there already in the past, so the picture that I'll be sharing, you probably saw it already, so please don't get bored, okay? So, Genevieve and I had this rare opportunity to visit the actual place where the ancient Corinth was. It was a site of deeper understanding and challenge in my mind and in my heart about what they went through. Not only Corinth folks, but also Philippi, Thessalonians, Colossians, Galatians, those different places that now we enjoy reading. And so we had the rare opportunity of looking and watching and taking picture of the actual place where they were. So let me take you to this little trip from San Francisco. Is that okay? All right. This is the map. I hope you can see it. Okay? This side right here is Asia, as you can see, and then the other side is Europe, right there. So from San Francisco, the group flew to, all right, so this is in red, is where the seven churches are located. Revelation chapter 2 and 3 John spoke about the revelation, the churches. They call them community because there's no really a building that they've been. It's a group. They are mobile from one location to another. So they move around because of persecution that they've been experiencing. But this is pretty much where they are located. Right here, they were located. So the team flew from San Francisco to Istanbul. That's Istanbul right there. Ancient name is Constantinople. All right? You know this from the history. And Istanbul was super busy. Now that everything's open, lots of tourists are in the ancient city of Constantinople. We spent our first week of our trip in Asia Minor, in that circle over there. Modern name is Turkey, where the seven churches of Revelation were located. So the group flew from Istanbul from Istanbul right there to Izmir. This right here, this is the modern name Izmir, which is called back in those days, in the book of Revelation, Smyrna. All right? So this is the map. I'm going to show you the map as soon as, okay? All right. This is Izmir, right here, in circle. So from from Istanbul up there, so we flew down to Smyrna. We spent 2 nights in this place, right here, in Circle. The following day, we went to, by the way, that's Patmos right there, in red, right here. So this is where John was when he wrote this circular letter. How many letters? One letter to 7 churches. Just one. Okay? One letter to 7 churches. Okay. So that's the Patmos right there where John was. So our group from this place, we went to Pergamum up there. It's a beautiful site. This is another series that I'm preparing about the 7 churches, their characteristics, their differences, and their similarities. Okay? So sometime before the end of this year, or probably next early 2024, I'm going to take you to a series of the 7 churches. So I'm preparing a series about this where I will show a lot of pictures as well. So the group went to Smyrna to Pergamum, and then from Pergamum, we went to Thyatira. Did I pronounce that right? Thyatira. Now, there was a lady whose name is Lydia in the book of Acts, which I will tell you later about Lydia. She's from this place right here. So the group went from Pergamum, and then we drove to Thyatira right here, and Genevieve and I walked around to this city, Thyatira, where Lydia was from. And then we went to the location of the ancient city of Thyatira. It was right there. And so Jerry and I were looking, and when taking pictures, oh my, what a sight. What a sight. And then from Thyatira, the group went for our second night back to Smyrna. And then the following day, we went to Sardis, right there. And then from Sardis, we went to Philadelphia. Okay? Now, in Philadelphia, there's just like 3 big buildings. They are ruins now, and no one is allowed. If you don't have permit to go inside, they will not allow you to come in. But luckily, our group tour actually asked for permission to go and have the permit, so we were able to go inside those 2 buildings. 3 buildings. So we have pictures. I'm going to show you those pictures when we have the series about the 7 churches. Now, listen carefully here. From Philadelphia, right here, we went there. From here, we went to a place, well, we went back again. I think we stayed overnight here, right? Yeah. We stayed overnight here. Is this little place called Hierapolis. You guys, some of you been there? Hierapolis? Carol? It was a sight. Let me tell you why. Because Hierapolis is just about 10 minutes, 15 minutes away to Laodicea right here. Okay? Now, in Hierapolis, we spent the whole day. This little color blue right here, you guys see it? So it's small. But this is a mixture of spring hot water and then spring cold water. But the elevation is so high, the Hierapolis, right here. We stay overnight here, this place. There's a spring, natural spring. Up to now, it's still there. Hot water or warm water. And then the other side is actually natural spring of cold water. That is the source of water to the city of Laodicea, which is overlooking from the top of the mountain where the natural springs are. You're actually looking down. That's Laodicea. That's their source of water. And so when the water flows down to Laodicea, you can choose if you want the warm water or if you want the cold water, or you go in between, it's a lukewarm. So the group stayed in this place for overnight in a hotel where the natural springs is inside the lobby of the hotel. And we were allowed to experience the word lukewarm. That's where the reference of the word lukewarm is. And so, even though I was walking this way during our trip, let's go and feel the water. So we went. And it's inside the lobby of the hotel. That's where the water source of Laodicea coming from in this place, right here. So we stay overnight there. Now, look at this carefully now. Just below Laodicea, it's about 30 minutes away, is what we call Colossae. Colossians. 30 minutes away from Laodicea is Colossae right there. So we took a picture, and the professor from Andrews, who's basically he's the one he's been there like several times, took students, the doctoral students there from Andrews, and then he explains everything. He said that when the last time he went to Laodicea, it's all mountain. All mountain. And then the archaeologists, the biblical archaeologists now, they were given funds to dig. And so when this trip, he went with us, he said, wow, this is a sight. Because he was there about 5 years ago, it was all mountain. And so when we went to Colossae right here, when we went to Colossae, it was a mountain. But there was a big circle in the middle of the mountain, and it's building coming out from that big circle. Someone already started digging, but they're still waiting for funding for some biblical archaeologists to go and dig more. But they now affirm that that place is Colossae. Then, from there, the group went about 100 miles to Ephesus. Another site, another beautiful site, another big city, which is Ephesus. These are the biblical places. The name is Ephesus. The modern name is Ephes. And in this place, they have their own product. I took a picture of it. I'm going to show you sometime. It's called Ephes drink. You cannot get that drink anywhere else, only in Ephesus. I said, can I have some of that drink? At least I can tell to my friends when I get back to church, I got this drink. It's called Ephes product. And so the lady says, oh, sir, we know that all of you are pastors here, but I'm going to tell you, though, that if you drink this, you might not be able to walk. I said, why? Because this is a beer. Okay, never mind then, I said. I don't drink beer. Sorry, never mind. Never mind. All right. So from Ephesus, right here, the group drove the whole day, and we went to a place called Troas. Right there. Another biblical site. Now, this is where we begin our series, part number 2 of Paul going to Corinth. Okay? Troas, that's the place right there, is. So the group now went from Istanbul. We flew and we went to, I wonder if you can read that name right there. It's too small, but it's called Thessaloniki. In our Bible, it's called Thessalonians. We spent 2 nights in this place, Thessaloniki, right here. Now, as soon as we arrived in Thessaloniki, we went to the place where the faithful ones in Thessalonica, and then they showed us the house of Jason. I can't remember what I think Acts chapter 16, or chapter 15, when the house of Jason trying to hide Paul, right? He was trying to hide Paul because there's commotion now because he's starting preaching about Jesus. He was preaching about the love of Jesus and the grace of God, and there was a commotion from the Jew because now he's converting a lot of people, and so Jason hid Paul in his house. And then at night, he actually asked for Paul to go in the boat along with Timothy and Silas and go somewhere else. And that's where they went, to Athens and to Corinth. Well, we will go back to that. Now, so the group went here, and so we decided, so before that, I'm going to show you where Troas is. Remember Troas right there? Troas right there? So here's Troas right there, right here, okay? So remember, 1 hour south of Troas is Ephesus. This is how close the location was. Very close, but during that time, there's no buses, there's no cars. I don't think there's horses, but Paul walked. How many miles did he say? How many miles did Paul walk? They said it's about, 60,000 miles of walking that Paul did. Maybe that's small. I'm just guessing here. But he said something around 600, I can't remember. Anyway, so from Troas, Paul took a boat along with Silas, Timothy, and Luke. They went to this place called Samothrace. It's in book of Acts, let's see here. Now called, it's Acts chapter 16. So from Troas, Paul and his companions sailed to Samothrace, now called Samothrake, right here. And they spent overnight here, and then after the night, the following day, they sailed and went to this place called Kavala. Kavala is the modern name, but the ancient name is Neapolis. Neapolis. Oh, I took a picture of Genevieve pointing that sign where Paul literally walked from this port right here, and then Paul walked into that port. They preserved the place. It's a tourist spot now. You can actually go and walk, but not the group, just one at a time. You can literally walk where Paul walked, okay? So then, that is the port of Kavala. Biblical name is Neapolis. Now, this port where Paul likely walked, the place is called Egnatia on the way to Philippi. Okay? Where's Philippi? So our group drove from Thessalonians, we went to Neapolis, right here. And this is Neapolis, now known Kabbalah. And then from there, which is Kabbalah right here, Kabbalah, and then Paul, it's about 9 miles from this place, about 9 miles going to this place. It's called Philippi. That's why we have the book Philippians. All right, am I getting you bored now? I'm sorry if I'm getting you bored, but to me, I'm a little excited about this. Exciting, all right? Now, so Paul went to this place. This is where the very first female convert of Paul in the land of Europe. What's her name? Lydia. Where's she from? Thyatira. She's a businesswoman. Well, now we call them businesswoman. Well, she was a businesswoman selling purple cloth, a very expensive items in the time of Paul. So this was about 49 AD. Here in Philippi, that circle right there, he met Lydia, the seller of purple cloth, a very expensive items during that time. So Lydia was the first convert on European soil in Acts chapter 16. And so the professor talked to us about the significance of this, that in the time of Paul, whoever is the oldest of the family, that when the family converts in the community, that patriarchs or someone will be the leader of the group. So here we are talking about the first women elder in the time of Paul. She was asked to lead the group. Basically, her family and the relatives and everyone in the community, that's the first converts of Paul in Philippi. When I was listening, it blew my mind. And everybody says, wow, look at that. The first female convert, female elder in the European soil in Acts chapter 16. Now, from Philippi, we went to a place called Berea. All right? I'm going to show you this picture right now, which is this Philippi right here. And so we went to the place, we have some pictures where Lydia was actually got baptized in that river. They preserved the place, they fenced the place, and that is the exact place where Lydia and her family and relatives and the community around her got baptized by Paul in that place. And not too far from that place, there was now a Lydia church. It's called Lydia Church, but it's a museum now. It's a museum. It's a Lydia church. There are several artifacts right there, and something that you can take a picture and study even more in that place right there. Now, so from there, we went to a place called Berea. Now, this is just the map that I will show you. This is Philippi right here, and this is Thessalonica. We went back to Thessalonica, drove down to Berea, and drove down to Athens, which is this part right here. And then just a little east of Athens, about 60 miles, is what we call Corinth. Across the sea is Ephesus right here. All right? Ephesus right here. The 7 churches right here. That's Troas right there, where we started. Troas, Neapolis, Samothrace, Neapolis, Thessalonica, Berea, down to Athens. Those are the places that Paul went along Acts chapter 16, 17, 18, and 19. Now, here comes our study. This is Athens. And I said 60 miles from Athens right here, across right there, is Corinthos. Can you see that in Greek? Corinthos. That's where Corinth is. I'm going to show you some pictures of this. But before that, you will see behind me, this is Athens. Is the actual stairs right here. The actual stairs, no one can climb there. I did not climb there. There's another way. But I asked Genevieve to take me a picture from down here. Then I was up there. Even though I was walking like this, I said, I'm going to climb up there and take a picture of me. So Genevieve took a picture of me right there. This is the actual stairs where Paul walked to Mars Hills. This is Mars Hills, right there, where Paul preached. You probably remember Acts 17. This is where Paul delivered his powerful sermon on the unknown God, of the Greeks and the Roman philosophers in Acts 17. Because behind us, right there, is a place what we call Acropolis. On the top of the mountain is Acropolis. So Genevieve and I went. So I was touching the rocks and the stones right there, and I said, was he standing here? Then I moved to a place. Was he standing here? Let me feel. Was he standing over here? And so I was literally crawling because my foot getting to hurt me. And so the group, when they were looking at me, what is Ron doing? Oh, he's trying to feel if Paul footsteps there. So everybody just like, okay, let's go follow Ron. Let's follow Ron. So everybody's, was it here? Was it here? So Genevieve took a picture of me right there. All right, maybe right there he was standing right there. Because behind us is the Acropolis when he made reference about philosophers. 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Philosophers, those who are smart people, good, they know history, they know everything, they spoke different languages, and they interpret this, they interpret that. Paul was making reference because of his experience in this place called Mars Hills. So Genevieve and I decided to actually cross Acropolis. That's Mars Hills right there. We took this picture from Acropolis. So we climbed that mountain, we went to Acropolis. You will see these ruins right here, ruins right there. They were the edifices of the philosophers. People, when they talk, when they speak, that's the final word for them in the time of Paul. But Paul broke those when we go to our study. Now, oh, that's Zeus and Hera kissing each other. No, that was actually a joke right there. So, the Greek gods, they call it. Now, about 60 miles from Athens is what we call Corinth. Paul stayed in Corinth for a year and a half. You see, Corinth is the once glorious city near Isthmus, a trade hub with two magnificent harbors. So I'm going to show you a picture of it. Right there. This is the Corinth right now, and this is the ancient Corinth. This is a, what do you call this? A canal right here. A canal, I'm going to show you closer, right there. So Corinth is actually located in between of these two harbors. Okay? Listen carefully now. Each side are two magnificent harbors. They have a splendid, what's it called again? Canal. I think we have some pictures right there. There's the canal right there. It's about 4 miles long and has the water depth of 26 feet, and its width varies from a minimum of 69 feet at the bottom and a maximum of 82 feet from the water surface. Now, we are told that the Emperor Nero, you probably know the history, was the first who attempted to construct this canal in Corinth. He personally breaking the ground with a pick, with an axe, or a small instrument, to remove the first bucket of load of soil in 60 AD. But the project was abandoned when he died shortly afterwards. Now, it was said now that this construction of Corinth was started in 1881 again, after many decades or centuries. Different leaders, different governors, different emperors, and started this project again. And it was finally done in 1893. The canal, making business transportation for Corinth much easier and quicker for them. Now, I have some pictures right here. Let's see about this canal. Okay, there's the canal. Sorry about the big faces, but that's where the middle of the bridge that we went, Genevieve and I, and took the picture of the canal. Another big faces, sorry about that. And let's see here. Okay, there we go. All right, this is Corinth, ancient Corinth. Okay? Is it beautiful? Let's see. We have more? There you go. That's the ancient Corinth. Ancient Corinth. Ancient Corinth, and the beautiful lady taking pictures right there. Okay, that's the ancient Corinth, the archaeological site and museum. All right, that's the Corinth now, and it was Corinth, the ancient Corinth back then. But back then, the ocean is still over here, right in this line, the coast right here. But because of some deposits now, the coast is closer right here, and that's the canal right there. Okay? Corinthos. It's called Corinthos. It's in Greek now. It's Greek, Corinthos. Now, let me share a little background of the real life situation of Corinth. Are you ready? You ready now? Give me 15, 20 minutes. You see, the historical background of the real life situation of the Corinthian people in the time of Paul. You see, across the coast, I show you the picture. Across the coast, I don't know if I have the picture. All right, let's see. Anyway, across the coast is Asia, right? And on the other side is Macedonia. You see, Asia is where all the expensive spices and excellent leather, many goods come from Asia in the time of Paul. Now imagine for a moment, stay with me, imagine for a moment, lots of cargoes, lots of ships are coming in from Asia, from all over places in the time of Paul. So many people in the ships, business owners, trade partners, cruise ships, and even slaves. Do you follow now? Many slaves. When after many days or months out in the ocean and in the ships, then as soon as they dock in Corinth, everyone is looking for entertainment. Do you follow? I'm trying to give you a historical, real-life background of the Corinthian people. Everyone is looking for entertainment. That is why Corinth becomes the center of entertainment. This is the Chicago or the Paris or Las Vegas of the first century. I'm sorry I didn't mean to put those wonderful cities that way, but you get my point, right? That is why we're not surprised that in the church, well, it's more like community of Corinth, they said, because they really don't have a building, because they are mobile. They move from one place to another, right? It's like every Sabbath we're here in our time now. We're in this building, okay? But literally we are the church. The people is the church, correct? So, in the time of Paul, they moved from one place to another. Why? Because they are being persecuted. All right? They are being blamed of something happening in the town that they did not do. That if someone caught them, they will have to be burned in front of everybody. Because Christianity, in those days, it's very hard. It was very hard. Now listen, stay with me now. Stay with me. Now, we have a population of Christians that in many ways reflects the population and culture of the city. As a result, the Christian in Corinth, the community, these believers, becomes problematic. Becomes problematic. Now, despite of all these qualities of this little congregation, Paul provides us a picture of what's going on in Corinth that time. Now, listen to this, just to describe the reality of what's happening in Corinth. Are you ready? You ready? I'm going to show you what's happening in Corinth. Here we go. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 9. Paul provides us a real life situation of Corinth. Do you not know that wrongdoers will not inherit the kingdom of God? He asked the question. Do not be deceived, he said. Neither the sexually immoral, nor the idolaters, nor adulterers, nor men who have sex with men. Do you get the picture of what happening in the real life situation of Corinth? Verse 10 it says, nor thieves, nor greedy, nor drunkards, nor slanderers, nor swindlers will inherit the kingdom of God. He was explaining here the real life situation of Corinth. Because after many weeks or months out in the ocean, the many people, the business owners, the ship crews, that when they docked, two of them in the city of Corinth, everybody was looking for entertainment. That is the real life situation in Corinth. Verse 11, he said, and that is what some of you wear. Was Paul saying? But you were washed, he said. You were sanctified. You were justified. Let me finish, Ron. You were justified in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ and by the Spirit of God, he was saying here. Now, another real life situation of Corinth, their situation right there is this. Now, in giving these instructions, listening to the instructions of Timothy and Titus and Silas, he was actually in Ephesus when he was writing this, right? He said, since you come together not for the better, but for the worse. I'm just giving you a real life situation of Corinth. Verse 18, it says, for first of all, that when you come together as church, I hear that there are divisions among you. And in part, I believe it. Paul was writing the people of Corinth about their real life situation and challenges. Verse 19, it says, for there must also be fractions among you, that those who are approved may be recognized among you. So Paul was writing about the real life situation of Corinth just to give us a picture of their predicament. This was the problem in Corinth. See, one subject here was about their celebration of the Lord's Supper right there. An experience meant to build up the church was actually having the opposite effect. And so Paul says, your meetings do more harm than good. Your meetings do more harm than good, he said in these verses. You see, the church was divided, a celebration which meant to express unity. Then one factor contributing to those divisions is evident by their economic differences in the church. Now, listen to this now. Hear what is Paul saying. Right into the kind of culture that puts all the emphasis on talent and achievement and looks right at them, and he says, I don't care how rich you are. I don't care how successful you are. I don't care how talented you are. But if you're irritable and impatient and selfish, self-centered, self-absorbed, and anxious-driven, you have nothing. You are nothing, he said. Here comes right at it. When Paul says, what matters most is not ability, not talent, not achievement, not your economic status, but it's about your moral and ethical quality, which we call this part 2 of the series, the inner heart character. I have 3 points here. Number 1, here we go. Inner heart character is not the same as being gifted. Inner heart character is not the same, or it's not just being good. But inner heart character, it is being graced. Let's begin with number 1. It's not the same as being gifted. You see, in verse 2 of 1 Corinthians chapter 13, Paul says this, and though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. That's what Paul's saying. You see, Paul gives the Corinthian church the gifts list: prophecy, mysteries, knowledge, even faith. That is the gifts list. You see, different kinds of gifts, and then at the very end of the verse, he drops the bombshell right there. But I have not love, then I am nothing. What is Paul saying here? I think it is possible that you could have all those gifts and talents. It is possible that you could have the gift of understanding things or memorizing everything. It is possible that you could have a deeper knowledge about the Bible and ability to explain it. And at the same time, also possible that you be spiritually bankrupt. Your heart is convinced of something, but not converted to someone. Let me repeat that. I think it's possible that your heart is convinced of something, but not converted to someone. When he says, I am nothing, he is not just talking in some kind of rhetorical insult. He is not saying that you're nothing. He's not saying that. He was saying that you could be spiritually zero. Nothing at all. You see, do you remember the statement when Jesus says in Matthew chapter 7, verses 22 and 23? He says, many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name, cast out demons in your name, and done many wonders in your name? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. You see, it's very clear that in the last days, Jesus is going to meet people who will claim, Lord, we prophesied. Lord, we preached. We did special music. We did some miracles for you. I've done this, I've done that. Jesus is going to say to many of them in this verse, I never knew you. Could it be that there are people who are hiding behind their abilities? Could it be that there are people are hiding behind their talents, skills, but underneath they are miserable? Could it be that there are people who are hiding behind a mask, but always feeling offended? Their ego is no different. They are impatient, irritable, unforgiving, and do keep records of wrongs. You see, look out. It is natural for us to mistake gifts for grace, talent for character. Remember, heaven is not a place for all the things that we have saved or accumulated. Heaven is about your inner heart character. Number two, second to the last. I'm trying to hurry here. It is not just being good. Let's look at verse 3, and then the last we go back to verse 1. Verse 3, it says, and though I bestow all my goods and feed to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, but have not love, and it profits me nothing. You see, Paul once again provides the church on another list. This is called the virtue lists. You see, the first one is gifts lists. This one is virtue list. And he starts over and said, and though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, I give my body to be burned, but have not love, he actually says, it profits me nothing. Right there. It's almost like Paul here is listening to a different voices in the crowd. It's almost like in verse 3, he is answering a different kind of person. He said, if I give, I possess, all I possess, to the poor. Now let's digest this for a bit here. I think he's talking about an honorable behavior, or perhaps a social conscience. You see, more than that, give all, everything to the poor, which means here's a person who is willing to live a prudent life and a discipled life and self-denying love. The other night, Genevieve and I and a group of friends were having dinner at home, which we're going to be starting doing now. We're going to be inviting some group of church members for dinner. So I proposed an idea which I've been really thinking about for a long time now. I said to the group, who among you here willing to join me for a month, that means 30 days, to sleep on the streets? Right here in Reading, under the bridge, beside the river, and get our food from the trash can. Dig the trash can, get some bottled water there, sell them, and literally, we're not going to go home, we're not going to take shower, we're not going to be in this clothes, but we're going to be street person. And so I challenged the group. I'm really been thinking about it and praying really hard that I would like to do it. That I said, I want to experience it. I want to go sleep in the streets for 30 days. I will keep my Sabbath preaching schedule, and I will surprise everybody on potluck maybe, that I'm a certain people, I'm going to cover my face, just my eyes, right there. And I probably have my bags with me, and I'm going to call and go inside Anderson Church. By this time, I'm probably smelly. And I just want to see how's everybody's reaction to me. Will they allow me to come in the door and say, you don't belong here, go to the street? Will someone tell me, said, oh, you can afford what we have here, you cannot come in? And then I will say, I just need a bottle of water, or maybe a little crackers of food, so I can eat. I've been really thinking about doing it, seriously. So if you don't see me for 30 days, you would know where I'm at. I'm not going to bring my phone with me. I'm just going to be there under the bridge. I think this is a noble thing. Now, mentioning this, if you like to join me, let me know. We can do it soon. Really, I've been thinking about this. Then he said, Paul says, give my body to be burned. Here is somebody who is willing to be committed, who is willing to say, I'm going to live for my values, even if it costs my life. That's integrity. That's denying for the cause. But notice he doesn't say this time, I am nothing. He says, I gain nothing. I gain nothing. What is gain? Gain is a word that really literally means to count or to get, especially as a result of someone's efforts. That's gain. So, when he said, I gain nothing, it could be translated like this. You could do it all, you still don't count. You have value, you don't value anything, and you don't earn anything. You see, what Paul is trying to say was that if you do good things to get a sense of worth, to say, I'm somebody, I count, I know how to do this, I'm a leader, that if you do things for the sake of doing, then you're nothing. But if you do things just because you want to feel good or feel worth, then you gain nothing, he said. Why is that? Because the least of things we did don't pleases God. They don't enhance our own character, no matter how many years you are a member of this church, of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. No matter how decades or many numbers of years even you were born into this church, but the least of things that you know that you did don't count, Paul says. They don't count. They don't enhance our own character. Because what pleases God is your character. Not what you know, but who you know. Right? Paul says, do not mistake being good, being sacrificial, being committed for a heart changed by God. I think that's powerful. I think this is what the message is. Because the very motivation as to why we do what we do for church and for our neighbors was the fruit of the inner heart character. And that is love and grace of God that motivates us to keep on doing what we do for Him, for His church, and for our community. Genevieve asked me the question, are you out of mind? Why do you want to be out there on the street sleeping under the bridge where you cannot literally sleep on the couch at home. And I told Genevieve, well, you got a point there. You got a point there. Perhaps I will call my friend May. May, do you have an extra sleeping bag there? I'm going to put it in my trash bag. Then I'm going to go out in the street for 30 days. Just 30 days. And so my friend Jeff Teo, who, guys, you know, my friend, he heard about this plan. And so he called me and said, if you're doing it, then I will do it with you. I said, agreed. When are we going to do it? We will not tell anybody when, but we will surprise them. We will knock on the door of the premises of the church during church service. See if they will accept us or not. See if the church message is true or not. We love our neighbors as we love ourselves. See if it's really true. So, we will not announce it, but we will do it. We will not say when, but we will do it. I know your address. I will knock on your door. See if you throw me away or see if you're going to give me a food. I will know where you live. And so I will knock on your door and we will literally go and ask for some bottled water. And we'll see. I'm going to go and I'm going to start with Michelle's house. We'll see. Number three, the last one is this. It's number 3, not number 2. Inner heart character is being graced. This is the final one, so we're almost done. You see, that sentence alone is not being gifted, not being good, but it's being graced. What do we mean by being graced? Well, first, inner character comes from a complete change in the way we approach God. We see this in verse 1. Verse 1 says, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am becoming sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. I've read this many, many times, all over, again and again, different translation, different versions, until I went to Athens and look at this place where Paul preached the very gospel in reference of this. Now I understand what he's talking about. Though I speak with the tongues of men, people in those days, in the time of Paul, they are smart people. They know history. They speak the volume of scrolls, but they're missing something: the power of love. You know, the other 2 sentences end with the phrase, I am nothing, and I gain nothing. Not in this case. He said, if I don't have love, I become a sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. And so I went and looked with the group and see the reference of this statement and trying to define what he's trying to say. I asked the professor, Sir, Dr. Stefanovic, what is really Paul saying here? He said, finish the trip and try to look. Now, if you don't find the answer, come back to me and I will explain it to you. So, in 2 weeks, we're going to go to Andrews, Genevieve and I, and I'm going to knock on his door because he lives in Andrews area. He's a professor of Daniel and Revelation and Pauline letters for many, many years. His brother is my professor in the seminary back in the Philippines about Daniel and Revelation too. is a good professor too. Now, what is this brass or gong or clanging cymbal stuff? You see, Bible commentators believe that Paul is talking about something the Corinthians would know about that you and I would not. That is the temple worship. I'll show you the Acropolis. Many temples in that area. They're now ruins. But lots of temples, different kind of worship style there is. You see, back in the days of Paul, the pagan gods or the Greek gods, mythological gods, are well talked about. They are famous. As a matter of fact, the small group of Christianity back then, they are considered atheists because they don't go along to what the world and the crowd is doing. They are peculiar people. That's where we get the word peculiar. They are peculiar people because they go against what's happening in their neighborhood. So Paul was saying that worship, they did not have the same simple worship. Their worship was a sight with brass, with cymbals. They have all sorts of enormous, you might say, an epic display because the whole point behind pagan religion and worship was the gods had to be impressed and attracted and warranted. That's why their worship was a sight. A clanging cymbal, brass, noise everywhere. It was a sight. So the power and the kind of love that Paul was talking about is the kind of love that changed the way we think, the way we behave. The experience of grace and love of God will change our entire approach to God. Why? Because if you and I have experienced the power of the grace of God, then you will have a different look at people, at folks, your family, your kids, because grace is so powerful that supersedes what you know, what talent you have. Because grace is what's so powerful. Listen to this. Ellen White says, no matter how high the profession, he whose heart is not filled with what? Love for God and his fellow men is not a true disciple of Christ. Next, he said, though he should possess great faith and have power even to work miracles, yet without love, his faith would be worthless. And then he said, he might display great liberality, but should he, from some other motive than genuine love, bestow all his goods to feed the poor, the act would not commend him to the favor of God. Now let's do this in closing. I know it's late. I kept you so long. Ask somebody who knows you. Perhaps your children, or perhaps your brother or your sister, someone you know you, someone who really, really knows you. Ask them this question. Am I happier than a year ago? Am I humble than a year ago? Am I unselfish than before? I mean, are you kinder or generous a year before? Is your prayer life better or not 6 months ago? Because don't mistake gifts for grace. Because the foundation of this is the grace and the love of God. You see, I may not be here for the next year or so, but I want to see this church loving each other. In our lesson quarterly, in our class this morning, someone commented, maybe we don't know each other. Maybe the people who sits here doesn't really fully know the folks who sits there. Or maybe those folks who sits here doesn't really know the folks who sits there. Just 50 people of us, but we don't know each other. I think we need to change the very thing about this church. It's easy to say, let's love one another. But let's show it by being kind to one another. Love one another. That if we indeed experience the grace of God in our lives, His love, let's show it. Let's begin in this church. What was that the word that we used earlier? Overflow. The love should overflow. If you experience the love of God and the grace of God, that love and grace of God should overflow to each one. We're not perfect. We make mistakes, that's for sure. But if we love one another despite of our differences and mistakes, that's my dream. That's my prayers for this church, is to reach one and love someone. So I'm going to surprise everyone. Don't be surprised, but I will surprise you. I will knock on your door. I will have a different looks. My mustache probably long. 30 days. I will be out there sleeping on the streets. May God bless you. Wait for the part 3 of this, the final one. And then after that, I'm going to begin another series called The Lost and Found series. Luke chapter 15. Our great God in heaven, thank you so much for the book of Corinthians. That now we can read, we can see, and we can continue the legacy of these faithful believers in the first century. We pray now, O Lord, that as we carry along that mission that you have asked them to do and carry on, bless this church in a powerful way. Lead us, inspire us, and help us to love one another despite of our weaknesses and differences. Thank you for hearing and answering our prayers. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
To reach a friend with a Christ-centered message of hope and wholeness. This has been Anderson SDA Church in Northern California. Thank you for joining us. For more information, visit our website at andersonadventist.org. We look forward to seeing you next time.